the 4D chess, I can even accept that model as long as you're willing to accept the idea that the path from A to checkmate, to maintain the metaphor one step further, will be long and torturous and tremendously painful.
Yeah.
And that's where, therefore, the enthusiasm for what is happening, this is like saying, look, we're going to amputate your leg. We don't have any anesthetic. You'll be better off when we get this gangrenous leg off you. And you're going, okay, great. You go, no, you're about to hack my leg off, you know? Mm-hmm. So I can look at the future where I'm walking along on a prosthetic leg and doing okay, but the present.
It's kind of timely that I had you on. I'm having you on. I had Luongo on the other day.
Mm-hmm. Tom and I are parting ways in terms of worldview. Where we still get along fine, but our worldviews
that's
are
timely then.
Polar opposite.
Then I'm buying into Tom.
Okay.
I want you to convince this is not specific to Tom, I guess.
But the general ideas, right?
The general idea. Where is that wrong?
Well, I'm not qualified to know what's wrong with the London-centric worldview. Yeah. I find it, and I've tried to find a good source. And the best source I got actually was out of Jim Kunstler, who sent me an article that described the origin of the city of London that dates back to 1067 or something, right? And right. The city of London is, which most people don't realize, is kind of like the Vatican, where it's an entity within a country, and it's a financial empire. I think, again, you can tell how little I really understand. I think it's sort of a Rothschild based. If it's not, something's wrong because they owned everything at one point. So, right. So to Tom, the city of London is like this hub from which all the spokes come off.
Right.
And I did a couple of podcasts with Steve Hanke, who's a currency expert. I mean, global currency expert. He was Suharto's advisor. He was he was big. And I asked him in this podcast about the city of London. He said, it's irrelevant. So I've been trying to set up a zero hedge debate with Tom on one side, with Hanke as the moderator. And I'm trying to figure out who would take the other side. And the problem is the people who don't subscribe to the City of London model don't care enough either to do it, right? So they haven't. It's like they haven't dug into it, and they just don't find them. It has not caught their attention. It's not caught their interest, and so I haven't.
Maybe Bob Moriarty.
Moriarty, he'd be interesting in the sense that there's no one with a more cutting wit than Bob. He'll slice you and dice you like Jack the Ripper with his funny way. But I don't think Tom needs someone who's got vast factual understanding, because Tom has got this model that's got tremendous number of if you think of it as a Christmas tree, ornaments, right? I mean, there's tremendous amount of information in Tom. He's been studying this for a long time. There needs to be someone who has read about those and taken the different path, and then I'd like to see them go at it. It wouldn't be important. I was on a podcast with Tom, 3 days ago. So it wouldn't be important, except for the fact that where Tom's model leads him to is a very sort of pro-Trump, pro-40 chess model.
Yeah.
And that's where you get people's attention, as in like, no fucking way, right? Yeah. And so I think there are people who are dismissive of Tom, but I don't think they'd be able to easily debate him. Right. And at the
I would
same
agree with
time,
you.
I'm not saying that Tom's necessarily right. I'm just saying that he would be a difficult debate because it would be one of those did you know that, sort of thing, and you go, no, I didn't know that, but sort of
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I can't hold up against him except for there's times where I see a real what I think is a crack or a gap in the logic, and I can go for that and say I don't see where this makes sense. So I play
Hmm.
I play much more defense. So it's like I'm playing ping pong, and I'm the guy who stands back and just keeps flipping it back over the net,
Yeah,
right,
right.
when I can, right, and he just keeps hammering slams at me. So
Right. Well, I guess then that what's the and I have my I don't want to say issues, but my reservations about Tom and Tom's thesis. And for the
he's
record,
undoubtedly
Tom's a
wrong
friend.
at some level, right? No
Right,
one's got a
right,
perfect model, so
right, right.
you should have reservations about parts of it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Tom is a friend.
right?
They're very
He,
happy to
he's
be friends.
I've probably done 20 podcasts with him, so yeah.
Yeah. But I'm trying to find out then what is it because I don't buy into Trump's an idiot.
No, he's politically actually quite savvy in
Yeah.
a caveman DNA sort of way, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But for example, when he bombed Iran, he couldn't possibly have not known that this was a high risk venture. I just don't believe it.
I don't believe that either. In fact, that was a point of not a point of contention, but I had Tom on right away after that, and I was like, no, well,
Well, that's he and I went at that same issue. So
yeah,
it's um and then we get stuck on the facts too. So, the Strait of Hormuz, how open is it? How closed is it? And how open does it have to be irrelevant? And Tom says that, 60% is getting out through other channels. And I just don't know other people who think that.
right.
I don't run into them. So I'm now working on trying to find someone who can document the actual percent flow through the strait. And he made an argument that ships are being escorted through the strait, and I said, but they're being escorted by U.S. destroyers, and he said, yeah, and I go, the flow rate can't be very good, right?
Hmm. Or at
And
least not what it was, right?
yeah, and there's a linear relationship between energy and the world consumed and the economy. I mean, it's one of the most remarkable linear. So the bigger the economy, the more energy we consume, which makes sort of totally intuitive sense. So if you can cut the total energy available to the economy, you pretty much cut 10% off the economy. And now
I mean, that's easy math.
it's easy
Right.
math, yeah. So that question of how much is getting through and what is the formal constraint on those things, and what's not getting through that could be catastrophic.
Hmm.
And then the so-called sort of changes that are going to be occur, which one could argue is the 4D chess model, that we will do this and this, and now it'll change the whole lay of the land. How long will that take? That's a critical question. We're not talking these changes will occur by Tuesday, right?
Right.
So
Well, that's a good point, but I guess what else then? And I think the other side is Trump's insane. He's crazy.
yeah, I don't think
And
that's true at all. I mean,
I
I
don't
don't
think
buy
that,
that model. Yeah.
yeah, I reject that. And so it's like, what is the other side?
Well, you can make
That's
the
what I'm trying.
argument he's totally compromised, right?
Say that again.
You can make the argument he's totally compromised.
Yeah, but I find that very hard to believe, right?
Well, except for things that he's done look almost sort of politically suicidal at times, right?
That's where the crazy argument comes in.
Yeah, but I don't buy the crazy
But I
argument.
don't buy the crazy argument. Or it either okay, so I think it's one or the other. He's either compromised or this is 4D chess.
And but
Because he's not crazy.
the 4D chess, I can even accept that model as long as you're willing to accept the idea that the path from A to checkmate, to maintain the metaphor one step further, will be long and torturous and tremendously painful.
Yeah.
And that's where, therefore, the enthusiasm for what is happening, this is like saying, look, we're going to amputate your leg. We don't have any anesthetic. You'll be better off when we get this gangrenous leg off you. And you're going, okay, great. You go, no, you're about to hack my leg off, you know. Mm-hmm. So I can look at the future where I'm walking along on a prosthetic leg and doing okay, but the present, it looks like a
so I think that's
experience.
it, Dave. I think that's exactly it. That's the good metaphor. I'm not, I guess this is just a light bulb moment I'm having right now. I think what you just said, I think it's 4D chess that's going to be torturous.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced of the 4D chess model, but I don't if you say let's accept the 4D chess model, that
becomes more acceptable.
That becomes my model. Yeah.
I'll go on the record. That's my model. 4D chess, that's torturous, because I don't see a lot of way out for a lot of.
But Trump does unnecessary things that don't make sense to me. So someone very close to him is trading in the oil futures market that appears to be so destructive. Right? Those $1 billion oil trades that occur 10 minutes before his tweets.
Yeah.
That tells me that there is an alternative to this model, but it told me, in theory at least, that it's someone very close to him. Someone who knows 10 minutes in advance that he's going to send a tweet.
Right.
And therefore it suggests sort of a family operation, very Clinton Foundation quality. Or now the alternative interpretation which came up is the idea that maybe someone has figured out, intelligence agencies have figured out how to monitor the keyboards of everyone. So as Trump or whoever's typing, someone is seeing that in a faraway capital of a small postage stamp sized country or something. It still requires there be a 10 or 15-minute delay, because they're able to get, if it was in real time and they hit send, you wouldn't have time to make the trade.
Right.
And so there's got to be some holdup where it goes through some official Trump filter group that says, okay, we'll release this, send this one back to Donald, say this is a problem here, that sort of thing.
Right.
So if there's a lag between creation of the tweets, that buys them time to do the oil trade. But the oil trades are supposedly perfect.
Yeah. And interesting you put that up. You mentioned that, because I do question a lot of people and their motives, and I don't know if you call it administration, but that guy Letnick. Right?
Oh God!
I question that, right?
Oh, Lutnick. So then that gives toe, but he went quiet after the Epstein folder files, right? He went real quiet after the Epstein files, so he's toxic now. They're trying to pretend,
and it
like
even goes back before then, right? Because he was at Cantor Fitzgerald,
and they all died. And he didn't go to work, and
he didn't go to work. He was out walking his son.
And yeah, I know. And he claimed it was first day of school, but it wasn't. And
yeah,
there's a lot of flaws. He said he met Epstein once, and he met him many,
he was
many,
on the
many
island.
times.
They have pictures of him.
Yeah, and he had done business dealings with him and all sorts of stuff. So Lutnick is damaged. What's stunning to me is he's not gone, but he might be gone, right? Have you seen any Lutnick in the last month, right? Nope. And he was front and center.
On everything.
If I had to write a plot, one of these closest to the pin, do you play golf? Closest to the pin goes to, if I had to write a plot, I would say that Lutnick got a phone call with no detail that said, don't go to work today. Just don't go to work today. Trust me, don't go. I don't think you'd tell them why, because you can't be making phone calls telling people that they're going to hit the towers with planes, right?
Right.
But you could get this, and if you get the call from the right person, you go, okay,
I'm not going to work.
I'm taking that at face value. I'm not going to work. You could think, is someone going to kill me? What's going to happen? I don't know, but don't go to work. And his wife didn't go. And there's people who've tracked ethnic origins of people who didn't go to work that day. And the claims are that call might have been made quite a few times. And so I'm reading stuff, even as of this morning, even they're finding more and more information about 9/11 and about, like Mike Benz was talking about.
Why is that all coming out now too?
I don't know.
And it's crazy. I'm like gone down that rabbit
25 years later.
Right?
But it's this week, yes. And Tucker tried to bring it out with a documentary that I thought was mediocre. He talked about the whole documentary was in some sense had the obtuseness that Tucker has kind of branded, where he asks questions without answering them, but the question itself tells you the story. He'll say, well, we don't know about Building 7. I go, well, apparently you do. Right?
Because
that sort of thing.
Bring up Building 7.
Yeah, right. And he was totally antagonistic to that theory at one point. There's a video of him being confronted by it. He just bitch slapped the person for bringing up 9/11. And it was really this, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And so something swung him. He learned something.
Yeah. And that's interesting. It's like, what happened to him? What did he see? What did he know? And even my own.
He's now doing satanic crap too.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's where I was going to go. I mean, did he go there? And then that's what. And I don't know. And I'm not alluding to that.
Well, we talked about it off camera.
Yeah.
And I told no one that because it was off camera and it was so dark. And it caught me by surprise. In the podcast I did with him, I threw out a lot of bait and he bit. That one I didn't throw out, but I threw it out off camera with his staff sitting there, about 5 people up in Maine. And he jumped on it very, very quickly. And he was further over his skis than me. And I've gone over my skis on these topics, trying to understand them. And his staff was, like bug-eyed. I don't think he had talked to his staff about this, so they were caught by surprise. And
I wish I was there.
And he says, well, and I wasn't going to say anything, but then he had a guy who had studied satanic cults in Hollywood, but as sometimes happens in his interviews, they don't go deep. It's like they're skim coating it. And so this guy was this grandson of a famous Hollywood person, and he dug into the cults in Hollywood, which I think are everywhere in Hollywood. Yeah. And yet they didn't go into the dirt. And I could go way deeper than they went.
Sure. And I could go way deeper, and I don't know anything.
Well, there's that. Yeah. And I'm laboring now because I just finished a book that is either a grotesque string of pathological lies, or a documented version of how totally fucked up the world is. So it's Kathy O'Brien's book. So I've seen a ton of Kathy O'Brien. I was on a Zoom call with Kathy. She's very difficult to interpret because the survivors of the MK Ultra program, their brains got fried badly. And so I had long chats with Nick Bryan about this. They have to retrieve memories. It's a very inefficient process. They have to deprogram. There's all sorts of things have to occur. And so you got to be careful, because they might be able to pass a lie detector test, but still be dredging up something that's fictional.
Right.
And I one time asked Juliet Engel, same problem. And I asked her if there was some way, some mechanism she had to to ascertain whether her memories are real. I said,
Yeah.
even a person who's not been through the trauma you've been through, um, has their memories get garbled. I'm told your memories become memories of memories, and so
Okay.
and she got defensive pretty quickly, so I backed out immediately because I didn't want to be the guy saying I don't trust what you're saying. Right? That's
Right.
not what I was saying. I was asking if she had a mechanism, like when an idea surfaces, it could be a 9-foot almondite alien
Right.
because of the way they program them.
Right.
How do you figure out what's real when your brain has been sent through such a food processor as they have? So Kathy O'Brien's book Transformation, I think I'm going to reach out to Kathy, but I'm going to reach out to people who know Kathy first, I think, because she names names. And I've actually, as I read the book, I kept track of every famous person who she points a finger at and said, this guy raped me, this guy tortured me, this guy, right? And it's a who's who of politics. It is multiple presidents, multiple senators, multiple presidents of other countries. And the treatment's horrific. And I'm trying to figure out and Nick once said that their memories are very inefficient, right? He was so and so it's not their fault. I want to be very clear on that. But if Kathy is in the same zip code as reality, then this book would not. Most people could not possibly process the material that's in this book. They would read 20 minutes of it or whatever, and they would say, nope, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Because it's too horrific to imagine that someone would knowingly do that.
Okay, so that brings up a great point, I think.
And let me mention one more thing. One of the reasons I dug into it is because I think it might be the key to understanding geopolitics. I'm not into it because that's very, very important because it's not fun reading this stuff.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it's just why do people vote the way they do? Why they do what they do? Why does Trump do what he did? Right? If Trump's compromised, why did Bongino, after screaming about the Epstein files, say that Epstein killed himself on camera while looking like a Korean POW?
Yeah.
What got into his skull? Because he's not a pussy. We know that.
Yeah.
And something got into his head. Patel looks like just a worthless sack of shit. But Bongino, I think, had gravitas.
He had the fear of God in him, it looked like.
He looked to me like he had seen a ghost. Yes. Yep. He looked as though he looked to me like a guy who's discovered that the world is being run by 9-foot zombies. He really had that look to him. And so what I'd love to know is, what did he see? And when I was talking to Tucker, he mentioned Tulsi Gabbard.
I wanted to talk about her too. Go ahead.
He said that she was stunned by what she saw. And I said, stunned based on what she already knew from her perspective? He said, totally. So what she was able to see in her new position was stunning. And she had been in that world for a very long time.
Right.
And so that was an eye opener for me. And while we were sitting at breakfast, he was getting text messages from Thomas Massie and guys like that during breakfast, right? I mean, it was an eye-opening experience. And my colleagues at one point, I mentioned something, the dark stuff we talked about, and they were laughing. They said, "Oh, was that when he was off his meds?" And I didn't say anything because I'm not going to get into an argument with my colleagues about this, but I'm thinking, so you think you can see the world better than Tucker Carlson?
Right.
And the answer is not close. You're sitting in Ithaca, you're paying no attention, yet you think he's off his meds when he talks about the darkness that's in the world.
Right.
That should just trouble you, just knowing that based on his unbelievably broad world experience.
And the connections and people texting him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of landed there. And that's my theory, is the reason we don't know is because it's so dark. I had a conversation just last night with my 22-year-old son. He was frustrated about Trump and why haven't they released the Epstein files and all of
Yeah.
that. And I told him, I don't think we'll ever know.
No.
Um, but my theory is, and this is not a defense. I want to be very clear. I'm in the camp. Everything needs to be released, whether it's
Right.
Epstein or I'm there. But it's not because it's so bad and it's so dark. We couldn't take it, and that's why we go back to Bongino.
Right.
That's it. And then it's interesting too. Tulsi Gabbard just happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Luongo says that, and so did counselors. They said that Tulsi Gabbard's husband has severe health problems.
I believe that to be true, and I've heard that as well. I believe he has cancer, but I don't believe
And
that's why she left.
they think that her understudy is a totally competent person. She's basically handed the baton over to someone who will carry it. Now, I go, what's this Stefanik crap? And they said, oh, that's just noise. Now, if she ends up getting the position, that will no longer be noise, right?
Yeah.
One of the most famous organic chemists in history. I mean, he was most famous in the 20th century. One of his skills was that if he looked at a very complicated problem, he never lost sight of what it is he didn't know. And so he'd be piecing together this very complex story, and he always made sure that if he drew a conclusion that 90% probability this is what's going on right here, and this is back in the Stone Age of organic chemistry when it really was hard to get things definitively. He always was able to keep. When I was sub boy, he was always able to say, but don't forget the 10%. Right. He
Yeah.
gave a course on another prominent scientist in the 20th century who spent 30 years doing a project to characterize an extremely complex molecule, which in the old days, they didn't have the techniques to do it. It was real blunt force sort of approach. 30 years he studied it and finally figured out the structure through this puzzle assembling protocol. And this famous guy gave a course and went through the entire 30 years of the guy's study in the course, got to the end and said he got it wrong. So that's the trick.
That's the trick.
Is to never lose sight of the fact that everything has a probability of, and if you have a complex model that's based
a lot of
on
things can go wrong.
Well, not only that, but if it's layering of probabilities, so if it's 90% probable that you're right here, and then based on that, you make your next move. And if that's a 90%, you're pretty soon into well under 50%.
Yeah.
The math is, 0.9 to the nth power, and is not a big number to get you to below 50% probability of being right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to layer error.
Yeah. Well, to pull on going back to Tulsi Gabbard and pulling on entertaining the idea that maybe Trump's compromised. I mean, what happened a month before, 2 weeks before she resigned? She gets
What
raided,
did happen?
right?
Tell me.
She
Yeah,
got
right.
raided. She got raided.
That supposedly is a fake story, and I could believe that.
What do we believe?
Well, the problem is when that story came out, it was the CIA supposedly who raided her office or something. I said,
yeah,
CIA doesn't have raiding powers in the
right.
United
Should have been the
States.
FBI, right?
Yeah, right. So that story strikes me as a plant.
What the hell? Why
Well,
would that?
Because the whole game is to throw out bullshit and have us running around like Mike the chicken, Mike the chicken. Mike the chicken got his head cut off, and somehow it kept enough of his brainstem that he stayed alive. And for a year and a half, Mike walked around without a goddamn head. Yeah, and they fed him with an eyedropper through his throat, and the guy took him on tour and circuses and stuff, and made a lot of money off Mike the Chicken. You Google it; it's real. And so we're Mike the Chicken now, where we've got just brain stems. And I do believe that you can't bury the signal, so you can't suppress the signal. It's going to get out. So you bury it in noise. You just throw more bullshit than you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like 9/11, right? Or let's take Charlie Kirk, right? As soon as he got shot, there emerged about 10 different potential shooters, of which the least probable to me is Tyler Robinson. He seems to be the one shooter for which the story is a terrible story. I think by offering up all those options, they get us to argue with each other about who was the shooter. Once it's not Tyler Robinson, I don't care. I really have no interest in who's the shooter. I mean, it's kind of technically a little interesting, that guy doing, the tip in the hat and the, signals and shit like that. But as soon as it's not Tyler Robinson, then it's a sovereign state of some kind, right?
Right.
And then it's like, okay, so forget about who the shooter is, who is behind it.
That's what the interesting question.
And that seems to go straight to Israel, or someone who wants to make it look like it goes straight to Israel, right? I mean, it's one of those things, but they're trying to hide it enough that it seems like. So then I read a book, Family of Secrets, about the Bush family.
Okay, haven't read it.
I'd read it part way and quit reading it, and I don't know quite remember why I quit. It was years ago I quit. And I'm not sure I believed it. Now it seems very tame. Seems very tame.
Yeah.
But the conclusion is George Bush Sr. was way more savvy, way more connected, way more, he probably was at Dealey Plaza, way more into everything. And if you read Kathy O'Brien's book, the shit he was into was horrific. George Bush Jr. was a complete moron. But in the book, they talked about burying.
I believe that to be true. I believe there's a
he
moron
achieved
in this
nothing.
story. I think he's a moron, but go ahead.
If there's a moron in this plot, it's George Bush Jr.
Yep.
He achieved nothing in his life.
Yeah.
Except he got elected president and then proceeded to screw things up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they talk about burying stories years in advance, like the Cardiff Giant. You know the Cardiff Giant?
No.
Cardiff Giant, some guy made a 10 or 12 foot giant like guy and then buried it and left it there for years and then hired a guy to dig a well.
And he dug it up?
And he dug it up. And it suckered a lot of people. But so they bury a story deep. Maybe too deep at times where they have to somehow throw out a little bit of bait to get some, but the journalist then just discovers it.
Yeah.
Seymour Hersh or someone, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But they discover it, and because it was so deep and so old, they're positive it's real.
Yeah.
And so then one of the things that convinced me that Trump had a soul. I'm not religious, but I'm getting close to being religious because good and evil certainly seems to be in play in this world. There were too many of these stories where some guy said, look, I was in trouble, and Trump's the only guy who helped me.
Right. Yep.
And I remember thinking that the guy does care about the little guy.
Yeah.
And the alternative model is that, back when he was talking.
Everybody.
Well, but back when he was talking about we needed tariffs, and like in 1990 did an interview where they asked, are you going to run for president? And he said no, which could have been a lie.
Sure.
And Trump's enough of a showman to say, okay, here's what we got to do. Let's bury a bunch of bodies. Let's bury a bunch of great little stories that we can dredge up years later when I need them.
Sure.
And it's a standard, apparently, intelligence trick. So to the extent he's connected, then,
Sure.
So it confounds the whole narrative.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think again it goes back to, and maybe this is just me, and this is not you talking, this is me talking to all my viewers and listeners. It's either, in my mind, just one of two things. He's either playing 4D chess and he's made some risky moves and some moves that haven't worked out,
Right.
or
Or
he's
haven't worked out
compromised,
yet,
or
or
haven't
worked out
worked out
yet.
yet, or haven't worked
Right.
out yet, or he's compromised. And
Right.
I think that is actually a possibility, but I don't think it's true, being compromised. I
Well,
mean, it
his
makes
son wears a
sense.
bulletproof vest, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Baron.
that's the thing is and being shot at, right?
Well, I'm those stories. I still am on board with the idea that he got shot at in Butler, although I'm less confident than back when I wrote about it, because I've seen footage since then where Secret Service seemed to be moving the cameramen around. And there was some weird shit in the audience that no one talked about. There was actually a couple of two different guys in the audience that if you home in on it, one guy does this. And you're
Wow.
going, holy shit, there's a bunch of oddities in the audience. So the Butler shooting could be baloney. You know, if
Okay.
you could, flick your ear with a razor blade or something, get some blood. It certainly was a major, major momentum change, and Trump is a showman.
Right.
The
Okay.
Ryan Ruth story was horseshit from head to toe, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Ryan Ruth had way too many weird oddities in his background to be just a crazy boy. He smacked of intelligence the whole way,
Yeah.
and he never shot anything. And he left his gun leaning against a fence with a backpack. I go, God, could you fucking
Yeah.
leave? That just. And then you got the dinner, the shooting. There was a shooting outside the White House. I mean, as Candace Owens, who I actually believe people think she's nuts. I don't. Um, that she says, okay, enough. Stop with the shootings. We're getting tired now. You know, and
Right? Yeah.
the correspondence dinner, you got Erica Kirk running around blubbering in her fake sort of way. And then the White House, that memo seems to be holding up that the memo said, make this go viral. Make this Erica Kirk story go viral. So what's Erica Kirk's role? I don't know, but Erica looks to me, based on all my reading of trafficking and MK Ultra and stuff like that, which has been going on for years now, as you know. She looks like trafficked from childhood. Trafficked. She's not just CIA. She's got what I think, and there's someone I want to talk to who knows this shit. She's got the personality traits of a trafficked person, the personality that just doesn't make sense. Everything I know about how humans react, she's missing really critical ingredients. And like, if your wife died, was shot in the neck, it would be a while before you were able to generate a real smile. And you certainly wouldn't be able to smile 5 days later on a Zoom call and talking about the merch sold and things like that.
Yeah. Or how you've forgiven the family and
Yeah, and the eyes really are a problem.
Mhm.
They really are a problem. And she seems to be a shitty actress, and her Romanian child trafficking stories have not been debunked. I hate the word debunked, but I'll use it. And my and her mother being deep state, and a
Mhm.
lot of the kids who are fucked up seem to get brought into the system via the military. It's a strange thing. I don't mean just via the military, because of course the MK Ultra program is inherently military, but I mean through military families.
Yeah.
And it's not clear why that is, but
Overseas, want a kid, can't have kids.
or the kid was never
Access.
yours to start with. But there's
Well,
also
that's
the
it.
first unborn child being sacrificed crap. Michael Aquino, you must know Michael
I
Aquino.
know. I know.
Michael Aquino, you should boot this up on Google. Just go on Google right now, boot up Michael Aquino, and it'll give your listeners a chance to do exactly the same. Aquino. Michael Aquino is, I think, a colonel in the military and a devout Satanist.
Yep.
You see
I'm
that
looking at it
guy?
right here.
Could you look weirder than that? Well, Michael Aquino's all over Kathy O'Brien's book. Michael Aquino.
This guy looks nuts.
Right. So what is that guy doing in the military, right? And so there are just oddities like that that don't make sense. So if I had to get a closest to the pin narrative, I'd say Erica Kirk was trafficked from childhood, and that in the trafficking process, if I understand this correctly, they do it like you train working dogs, where you breed them, and then you figure out what their inherent personalities are, and then a lot of them fail out of the program, but then when you get these dogs, you pair them with customers, where you say, okay, that blob of a lab, we should give that to the guy with PTSD. That really smart dog, we should give that to the blind guy, that sort of thing. And they try to pair them up for personality match of dog and customer.
Yeah.
And I think that the MK Ultra program does that too. So they go, okay, so this is a sick little fuck, this kid. He'll be an assassin. This girl's looking very cute. We have ways to exploit that in a very big way. So you can imagine Erica Kirk sort of pegging the needle on the hotness scale.
Mm-hmm.
And she won Miss Arizona. Now I've talked to beauty pageant winners, and you train a lifetime to win beauty pageants. They start when they're young, and they learn all the right moves to win the beauty pageant. This is not like
start.
She just walked into it and won.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was running an orphanage in Romania.
I knew that.
And they got kicked out of Romania for trafficking.
You can't make this up, can
Well,
you?
you can. That's the problem.
That's the problem. You can make it up.
But suppose they were kicked out of Romania for trafficking. She's in a CIA sort of advertisement documentary footage.
I knew that.
Yeah. And you go, how do you get to there, right? Yeah. Of course, her mother being deep state in a big way doesn't help. And then there's some very strange stories about another woman named Erica Kirk, who was about a generation back.
I haven't heard this.
So if you search Erica Kirk and you search, she was a wife of a Florida politician, and it looks like her. That could be her mother. But then you go, but her name's Erica Kirk, but she married into the Kirk name. So you go, that seems odd. Like a dead end, but you're going, unless the world is really weird.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not, for example, convinced that Charlie Kirk wasn't a created figure. He may have been trained just like the others. His background is very sort of hazy.
Yeah.
I watched Candace Owens carefully to try to get information, to try to pick up hints from her. And people have said she's thrown out some hints about him being groomed. He gets plucked right out of high school as a potentially talented guy by some mysterious billionaire type. And it's all, I see things that say that he wasn't particularly popular. And I'm going, so he got plucked out of high school. Why? I just saw some chick plucked out of high school to run she's director of something in Ukraine, right? These are weird things.
Yeah.
And so I'm not convinced that Charlie Kirk isn't a fabricated person who they discovered talents and said, okay, we're gonna groom this guy.
I thought about that actually.
And then it gets to the question of where are Charlie Kirk's kids?
Yeah.
There's the photos of the Kirks never show the faces of the kids, and you can say, well, that's to protect them. But if you're going through airports and stuff, right, you got your kids in tow. Hey, there's Charlie Kirk, snapshot, right? It would be hard to keep photos. There's no photos of her kid, of the
Yeah.
kids. And Erica, God-fearing woman running around, who's taking care of her kids
Yeah.
while she's doing this shit? And by the way, if your wife died and you had, like a 3 and a 4-year-old, you would not be running around running TPUSA. You would be focused on how do I keep these kids from being irreparably damaged.
100%. 100%.
And then there's the time where she was online and they were answering questions, and someone from the internet asked a question. So I said, "Oh, here's an easy one." And the question was, "What year were you married?" And Erica hesitated. Your wife would not forget that, even though she might be trying to suppress it at this point.
If I hesitated, I'd be on the couch for a week.
I know. But a guy you can imagine,
Yeah.
but
Women, no.
no. And she had only been married 4 years, so you'd know the year, the date. Fortunately for me, it saved my marriage many times. My wife couldn't remember the date of our anniversary because my birthday's the 25th, my son's is the 26th, and it was on the 26th of January, but she kept guessing the 25th. And when she finally got it right after years, I was tempted to say no and give her the other one.
Yeah, right.
But then I said, no, I'm off the hook now. I've earned my merit badge on not having to remember the anniversary.
Right.
So there's just things that are all wrong with the Kirk story. And there's tons of people get mad as hornets when they say, oh, she's a grieving widow. And I go, all right, are you sure?
She's not, she is a widow, but she ain't grieving.
I'm not even positive she's a widow.
Really?
Well, if it's a totally fabricated marriage.
Why can't they fabricate that? Right.
Well, they could get married, but so it's a complicated story. It's hard to imagine that Charlie Kirk would, if you accept the model that Erica's whacked, it's hard to imagine that Charlie didn't figure it out. But he could be pretty geeky. I mean, he could be pretty on the spectrum. He was impressive. I didn't know how good he was at what he did until after he died. That's the irony. There's a lot of us I was supposed to have dinner with him and Candace when they were going to come to Cornell, and they had to cancel the talk because, of course, Cornell students don't want to hear from someone who's got different ideas. That would have been a fun dinner. At the time, I just assumed the two were basically influencer grifter types.
Yeah.
And I didn't know they would become historically more important figures. So I didn't lose a lot of sleep over that failed dinner date.
Yeah. Wow, you got me thinking now, questioning everything, right? But that's
you have to question everything. Yeah, you really do. This is why your son should be careful at age 20. He will waste his life away if he does what I'm doing now.
Well, about that we should know though, but I'm questioning, I guess my question is like, if we were to find out it'd be so destructive, it'd be Bongino. You know what I'm saying?
Well, based on Kathy O'Brien's book. If Kathy O'Brien's book is forget about the flawed memories.
Is that on Amazon? I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Forget about the flawed memories, which Dick Bryan said their memories stink, right? So don't expect them to get shit right. Don't say they're not credible if they get shit wrong, because they've been split into a dozen personalities, and the ones who've survived have been reassembled via very elaborate sort of psychological protocols to save them. Yeah. Most of them are not saved. There's very few survivors who can come out and talk. And then, of course, when you listen to the survivors, They sound like a combination of a victim and a psychotherapist because they've over the years learned jargon that describes what happened to them.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it kind of intellectualizes the problem.
Yeah.
So now on the other hand, if you watch videos of like there was a famous 60 Minutes in Australia where they interviewed a girl who had been brought into a satanic cult and stuff. And she was totally authentic and she had the real flat personality and had not yet been reassembled. And so she was just a zombie.
Yeah.
Kathy has learned to function, but as a consequence, it makes her sound like a third person talking about her life.
You have to.
You have to. Now, the thing that you'll notice of the victims, and I don't know if it's true for what percentage of victims, but I've certainly seen it enough times that I'm convinced that it's common at some level, is the flat personality. So if you can watch someone be interviewed who describes things that happened to them, and they sound like they're describing what they had for dinner the night before, it's so matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they really have been emotionally destroyed and they're trying to rebuild the pieces and separating fact from fiction is a terrible, terrible problem. And I watched an interesting, there was a guy named J.J. Carroll who was a border guard for 25 years, and he started spouting off about what was going on at the southern border. And I got to know him through that. And then I watched him change quickly. And I had a very funny series of exchanges with a guy named Ryan Mata, who makes documentaries. And I saw he was connected up with Carol. And somehow Ryan and I started chatting about this. And I said, did you notice how quickly J.J. Carroll changed? He said, oh, my God, it was in real time. So J.J. went from the borders are perforated and people are being trafficked across the border to totally New World Order, and interviewing survivors and I think he's got it right.
Yeah.
But you watch him, he went right down the rabbit hole. And I think that the border rabbit hole, which was familiar to him. So he thought he understood it.
Yeah.
He thought he understood, but then there is this question, and any rational person would have trouble answering this question, and that is, if 350,000 kids disappeared going across the border, which is admitted at CNN, Fox News level, right? This is not a denied stat. It could be dead wrong, but it's not denied. Right. Where did they go? And the answer is not. They did not go to a bunch of guys with vans that have handwritten free candy on the side. I do not believe there is a consumer base of the archetypal perv, the guy, and that's who the only people they ever catch are the guys who have tattoos and look the part.
Look the part. Yep.
And you go, okay, so you rounded up a dozen pervs who look the part. There's 350,000 kids who went across the southern border in 1 year who disappeared. Where are they? And the CNN guys, Fox News guys never seem to get to that question.
No, they never ask.
Although Jesse Waters sort of brushed against it fairly recently, but
but somebody talking in his ear then as soon as he brings it up.
Yeah, right. And so and I've got to figure that the actual consumer base for the numbers of kids in the millions globally is too high to be just a source for pervs. I think there's something else going on. So there's certainly
what would that be?
Well, there's child slavery, for example. There's kids in the Congo who are digging cobalt out of open pit mines by hand. And I have a video which I can't seem to find now, and it breaks my heart a little bit, of a guy in a market, and he has these sacks, and he opens up the sack, and there's a kid in it. And so they have slave markets all around the world and kids. Mm-hmm. And Ted Gunderson, the famous FBI guy who turned or didn't, and it's part of a bigger psyop, who the hell knows, But Ted Gunderson started giving time. He was shortlisted to run the FBI. He ran the Dallas office. He ran the LA
Recently?
office.
I didn't know
No,
that.
years ago,
Years ago.
1990s, pre-90s, I think. He showed up in a cameo, just mentioned briefly in one of the books I read where he was investigating something. But he talks about, he mentioned that back in like 91 or 2 or something like that, that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid would bring 50,000 on the open market.
Yeah.
Inflation adjusts that, right? And so
Yeah.
it's a big market. And where would you go to get a ton of blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids? Well, let's start with Ukraine,
Ukraine. Yep.
right? Eastern Europe apparently has always been a problem.
Yep. I know. Yep.
And I think Europe has a much bigger problem with satanic cults than the United States because of the bloodlines that go further back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think the British family, the royal family, is fucked up from head to toe. You probably know the name Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile is the most famous perv of all time, probably. So you want Savile. He knew everybody.
Should I pull it up? Savile.
So if you search Jimmy Savile, you'll see him with the most famous people in Europe, with the King of England, and apparently it was an absolutely known secret that he was a perv.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense had been reduced to, yes, but he was just a perv. He didn't traffic. Well, I don't think so. And he was tight with now King Charles and the royal family and everyone. He was as famous as Merv Griffin. He was an entertainer, very flamboyant, and apparently he just molested kids relentlessly, and I think he trafficked them. I think the Vatican is involved in trafficking. They cover up pervy priests, but that never interested me because I said, okay, so you hire a guy and you tell him he can't have sex for the rest of his life. That's not going to work well.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't work well and you have trouble getting priests, you cover it up. I go, okay, it's not good, but it doesn't take me anywhere of importance in terms of understanding geopolitics. But I think the Vatican really did traffic. I think the Vatican, Operation Gladio tells a detailed story of the Vatican, of a triumvirate where the CIA is about the drug world. The CIA, the Vatican, and organized crime controlled the entire global drug trade. Maybe with the exception of some fentanyl from China, and the Vatican was the banker. The CIA handled geopolitical issues. And
why the Vatican? Because of privacy or because of
I think so. And not to mention, if the church is that powerful, then you're going to tell the Vatican. The Vatican's been accruing wealth for 2,000 years, right?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Maybe not 2,000. They might have started out life as one of the papal states much later, but for many, many centuries.
Right.
And I think Vatican.Inc. is a very different than Vatican, the religious thing that really is, I think, a cover story.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point because of it'd be easy, not only for privacy, but all the properties they own over all the world, whether it's children or whether it's drugs or money or whatever.
You ever seen the snake room at the Vatican? You ever seen the snake room? Go back to
maybe.
Google.
I was at the Vatican 25 years ago, but
I wasn't there. Go Google snake room, Vatican. And the reason is your viewers should do exactly the same thing while you're burning the clock. Google the snake room. It's a 20,000 seat auditorium inside the Vatican.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. It's
that is creepy.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a room you ought to find in the Vatican. And apparently, if you look at the backdrop, there's some creepy shit. There's stuff
that is creepy.
There's stuff you can't see from the panned back view, but if you get close, it really is like the gates of hell.
That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, it's a snake. It's unambiguously a snake. No, designed to be a snake. And you could make the argument, well, that's an Adam and Eve metaphor, but that's not what I would put.
That's not an Adam and Eve metaphor.
right? Um, I,
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Eric Rice, who's a minister and a founder of 15 startups and has a podcast. He's the one who alerted me to that. Eric has dug into this shit deeply. Again,
Gosh.
yeah, yeah.
That's giving me chills,
If
man.
your listeners aren't Googling at this point, they're wired different than me.
Oh,
Um,
they can change the lights to
yeah,
red, to green.
yeah, it's a strange world.
This is strange. Okay, so that leads it like that's at the heart of all this, no? Not the
Well,
Vatican,
and
but
then I get into odd. I get some I'm really just jumping around, but Jared Kushner's Jewish, we know that, and Trump has obviously strong connections to Israel, which I don't think we knew about until pretty recently. Correct?
Mhm.
October 7th would probably be
Yeah,
the date that we began to learn about him.
right.
Um, but Kushner's not just Jewish. That's irrelevant to me. He's the Kushner family is exceedingly powerful Zionist family, right? Which again, I had to look up what Zionism really meant, and it's a very very charged word because it starts out with one meaning. It has been morphed by the Zionists to mean Israel has the right to exist. That's not what Zionist means.
Hmm.
Um, it's also morphed into a pejorative term. And so one time I made reference to a Zionist, and the guy got mad at me, and I go, I did not know that that was an offensive thing to say. It was news to me. But Kushner's family is a very powerful Zionist family, and you go, is that the origin of the problem? Is that or I had a very strange thought. This is fantasy island here thought, and that is that if you think of medieval times, the king of France would marry his daughter to the son of the king of Spain as part of an
Right. I know where you're going.
alliance, right? And
Yeah.
so the question is, did Jared Kushner
Hmm.
somehow get linked up with Ivanka Trump in some sort of marriage of alliance? And then someone sent me some shit. It turns out there's a woman who played a major role in getting these two together, and then they had trouble in getting them back together. And it turns out, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong in this, but she's prominent. But I think if I remember correctly, it's Rupert Murdoch's daughter. And so you all of a sudden you're going, oh man, right? This is getting weird.
That's getting really weird.
And and um
Hmm.
and so then
But it
the
makes
question
sense
is
though,
is
too, right?
is it possible therefore that the whole Trump thing is a creation? The Trump it's so bizarre that now we're layering, risk on top of risk on top. So
Yeah.
the probabilities of all these things being true, every one of them is non-zero and non-100%. And I would say some of the things I just talked about are very low probability, right?
Right.
But they titillate the mind.
Well, I think it's more, they might be a low probability, but here's the problem. We just been, that's been the last 20 years, meaning
The
whenever there's
internet,
a probability. No, that's absurd. That's absurd.
right? 9/11 was not an inside job, right? That's
Right.
absurd,
It's absurd. COVID came from bats.
right?
It's absurd,
Nothing's holding up.
Nothing's holding up. The shooting in Vegas. I won't even talk about Trump. I mean, what?
I think
Yeah,
all the
Epstein kills
shootings. I
himself.
think all the shootings. I'm not sure it's 100%, but at one point there were so many shootings going on. At one point, something like 9 of them in a row are trannies.
Yeah.
That's not statistical,
What do you
right?
mean?
That's just, it can't be that many tranny shooters all in a row.
Right.
So I think most of the shooters are not just crazy kids who got a goofy idea.
I would agree.
And it could be all of them. It could be even Columbine. But I think there's something very suspicious about the Uvalde shootings. And
Yep.
And then, hard disks disappear and things like that. There's all sorts of things associated with these shooters. And
Yeah, right?
I
We
got in
don't
a
have any of
discussion.
the tapes.
I got in
They've
a
all went
discussion
through.
with a cop yesterday, actually, and I said that of the 60 to 80 cops at 9/11, 4 committed suicide.
Yeah.
And he seemed to not freak at that stat. And I'm going, that seems like a lot of suicides. I said, and you say, well, it was very stressful. And I go, actually, being a cop at 9/11 probably is relatively unstressful compared to walking into a trailer park where there's a domestic brawl going on.
Yeah.
Because in 9/11, 3/4 of that crowd would fight to the death to save the cops.
Yeah.
Right? That
Right.
was
Right.
a
Right.
very pro-cop crowd. Now, there
Yeah.
might have been some tempers flaring,
Right.
like on the sports fields and in hockey and shit, but, they
Yeah.
don't want to kill each other.
No.
And did you watch the Carlson interview by chance?
No, I didn't.
So you want to watch that one, Buckley Carlson and Tucker
Yes, I
Carlson.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And Buckley said something all through that. It was a great, great, great interview.
That was a great interview. It made me want to
But
smoke a cigarette.
yeah, that was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But the one that hit me like a truck was when Buckley said that for the 4 years that Trump was not president, he didn't say one word to help the 9/11, the January 6th victims, which, in my opinion, were the guys thrown in jail. To me, the treatment of the January 6th protesters was treasonous at the highest level.
Yeah, of course.
And I would like and I would really like to have a real inquiry into that and to round up the scoundrels and throw them in jail using the highest level of judicial skill. I do not want to use lawfare. I want them to be tried in a court of law with jury of their peers.
Yeah.
A fair trial.
It's never going to happen. Good luck on that, though.
No, it's never going to. In fact, one of the things that hit me after, it hadn't hit me that Trump had said nothing.
Yeah.
What had hit me is that the Republicans said nothing. Yeah. I was appalled. I'm going, why don't you guys grow a spine?
Well,
and defend those guys.
Is it about growing a spine, or there's a bunch of stuff on them?
Well, that's the question. But I do know that when I wrote about it, I grew a spine.
Yeah.
And I was truly appalled by what happened. And I've got pictures of Ukrainian operatives in the crowd, known Ukrainian operatives. I've got pictures of Ray Epps speaking to John Sullivan. Those two should not know each other.
Right.
There's just there's things like that. And so the whole thing was kayfabe at some level, except for the fact that 700 people went to prison under inhumane conditions.
Solitary confinement.
Yeah. And one guy was, he's stewing in his urine and feces, no toilet.
Yeah.
They were putting Clorox in his food. They were,
Yep.
So the guys who did that, I'd try them, put them against the wall and shoot them.
Yeah.
I'd pull I'd throw the switch on them on the electric chair. There's things, killing your wife or killing your husband may or may not be the act of an insane person.
Right? Right. Well,
and the odds of you doing it again aren't that good.
Yeah.
I mean, but these guys are bad. These guys are so. And I know too many people now who use the language of good and evil to describe things that would have been. So you're getting awfully close to sort of a biblical linguistics now,
right? And I guess that's like it's like, where are we at? Meaning the depravity, and then depravity is the wrong word. The corruption and the brutality, brutality.
Mm-hmm.
And the lies are so bad, and it's coming out. And I don't even know if this is a question other than maybe just a statement, but where are we at then as a culture and society? Meaning, what's the next thing? I mean, my cynical part of me is anything going to happen?
Well, I worry. It's
Does
like
that
if you
make
get
sense?
it's like if you get kidnapped, you want to stay blindfolded
Yeah.
because you don't want to see your kidnappers because then they have no choice but to kill you. The internet may have removed our blindfolds.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, now it's got. I really do worry that we're heading for a total authoritarian state, which central bank digital currency, censorship, face recognition cameras. Tucker just did an interview with the guy who can hack his way into anything. He's a super hacker. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the guy was way more complicated than what he says, right? But this week he
I'm
did
going to
it.
assume that he is.
Right.
Yeah.
But he showed gizmos and stuff that you could do. But he talked about he showed Tucker information about Tucker that Tucker had no idea was available, that sort of thing. Um, and he and one of the arguments for why Charlie Kirk would hide his kids' faces is that facial recognition. You can put a mask over your face, and facial recognition can figure out who you are based
Yeah.
on just the brow. You get a quarter of the face, and
Right.
and they can do it. And so they're going to know where we are at all times.
Hmm.
You won't be able to hide. You can't walk around with a COVID mask and think that you're not being identified.
Hmm.
Um, Certainly, the AI data centers are ominous as hell.
Hmm.
They talk about how we got to do it to beat China. I don't buy that story. I mean, it might be part of the story, but there's a former Stasi agent who said, if you think the government's going to collect information on you and not use it against you, you're dreaming.
Yeah.
And
They
so
always
you and
will.
I could end up locked up for having this conversation when they decide that we are subversives.
Or a liability.
Yeah, and then there's questions of why do certain people survive. So like Charlie Kirk, if they need to get rid of Charlie Kirk, they could have done it through a flaming Michael Hastings car crash or a Seth Rich robbery or
Yep.
something like that,
Yep.
and we'd
The
all
common
feel. But
things.
yeah, but they instead made it grotesque, which to me the message is the same as the message of Thomas Massie getting primary. Don't mess with us.
Yeah.
And even the Thomas Massie story could be poorly understood. Thomas Massie did not tell us everything he knew.
No.
He pretended to have plenty to tell us, but what he actually told us was really minimal.
Yeah. But that's another issue, right? Because that's what always comes out, the least bit of information, maybe a little more than the last guy, but we get that much of the information.
So interesting, I think the Epstein files, although they deleted a bunch of stuff and they held 2 million documents, which one can only imagine what the hell's in those, um, they failed to fully, they either knew it and said, we'll just deal with it, or they failed to know what crowdsourcing could do to put together stories. And the
Yep.
story about Epstein, I think, is less about perversion, which is a great headline, and more about geopolitical deal making.
Yeah. Yep. I couldn't
And
agree more.
and by the way, if you're really blackmailing people, no one's going to want to talk to you, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
Mike
right.
Benz was the first one that I heard say that,
Yeah.
and then so a friend of mine turned out to be in the Epstein files, and it was actually he was getting help on how to get a severance package out of the quadrillion the $1 trillion plus $1 trillion market cap company that he was the president of.
Yeah.
And so that narrows it down to a very small number of people. And so it didn't look good that he was in there, but Epstein was coaching him on how to get the severance because he wanted to leave because he was not going to get the top dog spot. He wasn't going to get the CEO. And he left.
Hmm.
And I have no idea. I this his wife works for a fairly deep state looking organization to me. So that
Yeah.
could just be tip of the iceberg too, but I don't want to rat him out. I like the guy. We have, it's been years since we chatted, but we have digital exchanges occasionally, and I don't want to blow that.
Well,
I
that's
have no
interesting.
animus towards him.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It goes back to it's like there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of oh, what's the word? It just seems all planned, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the heart of it. And as you mentioned, it seems biblical almost.
Well,
Almost.
yeah. So again, back to Kathy Wood. One of the reasons because I just finished the book and it wore my
Kathy
brain to a
O'Brien or
nub.
Kathy Wood?
Kathy O'Brien, not
Kathy
Kathy Wood.
O'Brien. Yeah, Kathy Wood, ARC. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Kathy O'Brien. And then there's Judy Wood. Kathy O'Brien. One thing she was used for, she was a very high level prostituted person. So, but that doesn't explain it. She wasn't. I mean, the things they did to her were so beyond prostitution, so surreal. But one of her many duties is they groomed her to be able to memorize things. She apparently is very good at memorization. And the dissociative identity disorder, I think, allowed her to have a focused part of her brain, and so she was used to deliver messages between. She was like an encrypted messenger, and so she would go to the president of Mexico and said, "Our president would like to tell you that A, B, C, D, and E about NAFTA," and
Interesting.
and then he'd bang her, you
Sure.
know. But
Sure.
but she was like Signal or something, you know. She was an encrypted messenger, and what the end of the book is stunningly thin on how she escaped. The beginning of the book is written by the guy who helped her escape. I'm going to go back and read the beginning again.
I gotta read the book, man. But
Well, it's a rough read.
maybe I
And
don't need to read the book.
well, the other thing is they use a lot of Disney stuff, which I bet you know is in itself a bad look. But
Yeah.
they use a lot of fantasy in their programming. And I think it serves several purposes. One is they use the fantasy as code words. So they have ways, you know, when you dissociate someone into 10 identities, um, it's a science now. Nick told me that. They can reach any one of the identities through certain key phrases. And they use fantasy. They use a lot of Disney characters. A lot of Wizard of Oz is apparently front and center. And they have sort of metaphorical significance, but they're also used to trigger the sex person, the other person, you know. And so and what it also does is, let's say you're a kid and you decide to rat out your 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 um, your abusers. Well, first and foremost, that never works. Like the Finders cult, they several different cities. The kids got discovered, and then the cops realized they were part of the same satanic cult, and they started communicating, and then the Fed showed up, and away it went. And so and she also talks about how the sense of no hope is when you are being banged by your priest, the chief of police, the principal of your school, senators, governors, and presidents. The sense that there's someone you could turn to is zero.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Now,
gone.
if you did turn to someone, your description of what was happening would be in this complete fantasy language, because that's what you've been trained to work with. And so someone would be listening to you saying, you know, you're describing Princess and the fucking Pea now, right? You're describing Prince Charming. You're describing shit that you saw on TV. And so it provides a great cover because it
Yeah.
allows it to look like the kids are channeling shit and then adding nuance where it shouldn't exist. They called it satanic panic. They gave it the name satanic panic. So there were papers written about how there's this mania, like the girls in the Salem witch trials, this mania, and that it was all fake.
Right.
And that's the cover story. So when some kid comes forward and says, by the way, I'm getting it up the ass by so-and-so, that sort of thing, it gets shoveled into the satanic panic category. The other stunning thing is she's being flown around by helicopter and driven around by car, and she's really in the big leagues, but treated truly horrifically. The pilots, the drivers, the guards, they all know about it.
Yeah.
And so the extensiveness of the network, and you'd think that somehow you just couldn't keep it hermetically sealed enough.
That's the thing, is why, and I'm not saying this because of doubt. I'm not saying it because of doubt.
I know. It's really
But
important. We have to keep saying
how is it so sealed? I mean, that's
I don't really understand whether it's a self-selected group, whether but they're moving she's moving so seamlessly between various players,
right,
that you'd think that there would be players having to do with that person. But like Robert Byrd, the senator, was just a brutal person. Dick Cheney was a brutal person. Now, here's an interesting story. If you read about this stuff, all of a sudden I mentioned a cameo of Gunderson appearing in another book. Yeah. It catches my eye because it's an independent confirmation of it was trivial information, but I go, okay, so Gunderson's real. Let's start with that. He's real. I'm on a Zoom call with two retired generals, and they're totally legit, I think. And one of them mentioned a guy named Janda.
Yeah.
And I said, wait, T.O., these are Zoom calls I don't organize, so I'm not. It's part of a Zoom group I'm in. And I said, wait a minute, Janda, the Undersecretary of Health or whatever. And they go, yeah. And I said, is he a good guy? And they go, yeah, he's a really good guy. Because I had listened to an interview of Janda in which he said, when I got to my appointment and I got to the Beltway, inside the Beltway, the first week I was there, a grizzled insider took me out to lunch and said, whatever you do, don't go to a private party, no matter what. And he said, even if it's at the vice president's house, you don't go. And Janda says, why? And he said, because you'll wake up in the morning in a fog with a Polaroid clipped to your lapel with you and a 5-year-old.
Yep.
And that hit me like a truck, because I realized then you do not need to corrupt the person. You simply need to slip them a Mickey.
Yep.
You simply need to drug them, and he can say, oh, I didn't do it. And they go, we got the photos, dude. There's a video, and he might be higher than a kite, but he's banging a 5-year-old looking goofed out of his mind.
Yep.
There's a victim who claims he watched Bernie Sanders banging a 5-year-old, crying his eyes out because they said, if you don't bang her, then we're going to kill these other 2 kids. Make the call, that sort of thing. So Janda all of a sudden unexpectedly got cross-checked by these 2 generals. Now, the vice president at the time was Dick Cheney. Well, Dick Cheney turns out to be a totally savage beast with Kathy O'Brien, and apparently has a dick the size of a salami. And so that would be, in theory, someone who could attest to that, right? That's an easily identifiable trait. And he was brutal. But the problem is, she also names Reagan, Bush Sr., Bush Jr., Arlen Specter, Gerald Ford, many governors, many senators. I kept a running list because I wanted to be able to say here
they're all in it.
They're all in it. And there's people who cross paths, like she mentioned. She tells a story of Hillary. She says Bill's bisexual, which doesn't shock you because I think he was in
I'm not shocked.
satanic cults and doing all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
But and I always thought that Bill and Hillary formed an alliance, but I Jesus Christ, so she runs into Bill involved in trafficking through our drugs through Arkansas and stuff like that. And so Bill doesn't show up sexually in a very big way in the book. So I expected him to have his own chapter or something.
Right.
No,
I'm surprised.
but Hillary is going down on her. And Bill walks in the fucking room. And he doesn't even flinch. Hillary pulls her face up and looks at Bill and says, well, how'd the meeting go? And Bill explains what happened. And then Hillary went back to having oral sex with Kathy.
God.
And so again, if you read this book, you'll go, this is either complete fantasy or we are living in the Matrix.
Yeah.
And there's really not an in-between.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be half fantasy, but we still live in the Matrix if it's half fantasy. Right? Yeah. This is one of these how many worms you have to find in your spaghetti before you don't eat it.
Yeah. That goes back, it's like I don't want to say it goes back to Trump, the original question, but it goes back to the original question. It's 4D chess or he's compromised. He's not stupid. And I guess that just answers the question with all of this. It's either 4D chess. It's just not stupid is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, stupid is not what I accept.
It's not
I don't
stupid.
accept stupid. The woman on Shark Tank, who, by the way, you see Kevin Leary explaining his ties to the Utah data center. Boy, did he look bad. Oh my God. He got interviewed by Tucker.
I didn't.
He got interviewed by Tucker and Leary really looked bad. But the woman on Shark Tank, said that she's never.
The younger one or the older one?
The blondish, I'd say I don't know. I don't remember two. But anyways, she said she's never seen anyone as good as Trump at spotting a person's weakness, which really is true. That really does describe him. When he was up on stage, knocking off presidential contenders in the Republican primary, he was just taking them down. Yeah. And one time, one of my colleagues at dinner made reference to his incompetent campaign right after he won the nomination. I go, he just knocked off a dozen highly viable contenders.
It is funny too.
And so idiosyncratic, aberrant, distasteful, incompetence, not the word.
Right. Yeah. Interesting, Dave.
I had dinner with Jonah Goldberg once. I said I thought Trump was on the spectrum, ADHD or something. He said, no, he's sleep deprived.
Because he's always going.
He's up. He's always going.
He's always going. Well, I don't know. That was a fun talk, but I don't know.
Where do you go from here?
Where do you go from there?
I don't know. I'm going to keep reading. I think I'm going to try to write about it. I might have just signed my death warrant there for all I know. I'm not suicidal. I have to, even if I don't publish it, I have to write about it to sort of clear it off my back. Get it out. It's this monkey on my back. And
yeah, we've talked a little bit about that. I want to encourage you to write about it.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably going to filter it through, one reader at a time. I'll probably send it through the eyes of a lawyer. Because it would be stupid to make a rookie error.
Yeah.
Right? I once had a lawyer tell me, don't call a person a liar, call him a weasel, call him a douchebag. These are not demonstrably true or false in a court of law.
Right.
If you call them a liar. So, and if you look at the trafficked people, one of the patterns, which is common, if not almost universal, is they talk about the guys who are now dead. They don't tend to talk about the living problems.
Because they can't hurt them anymore, right?
Annika Lucas got cornered by Patrick Bet David, where she didn't want to admit who her.
I remember that.
Yeah, but you have owners. So Robert Byrd was the owner of Kathy. And you can literally sell these people. You can trade them for Pokemon cards or something.
How satanic is that, right?
Yeah, and Annika got cornered by Patrick Bet David, as you saw, where he tries to get her to say who her owner was, and she wouldn't go there. And then he said, our investigations say it's David Rockefeller. And she started crying. Right. Yep. She said, I didn't want to go here. I didn't agree to this. I didn't. And then finally he pressed her and she admitted it.
Yep.
And it also tells me, therefore, that the people who work for David Rockefeller, which my guess is he's got more than one maid in that house of his,
right?
More than one cook. They got to know.
They got to know, man.
They got to know Barack Obama's coming out bad. I pick up these little. You must see these little documentaries that people put together, and they say, Barack Obama's a satanic child eating, whatever, and some of them are just outlandishly. What do I do with that?
Right.
But other times, like I listened to one where supposedly Denzel Washington called him out as blood drinking, and I had been picking up shards of information to say that he's one of the only guys in Hollywood who's not corrupt. Just saw a picture of Justin Trudeau.
And Gibson.
Yeah, but here's the problem with Gibson. Gibson looks crazy.
He does.
And he could have been driven crazy. Yeah. Right? And he also acts frenetic, like maybe he's on amphetamines or something. Same with this guy, Cappy. Cappy?
Yep.
And Cappy fell off a bridge and got run over by a car, which sounds like a Hollywood grand finale scene of a movie. But he called out a bunch of people by names, and then he dies. And Anne Hesh, suspicious death in which she seemed to pop up off the gurney after supposedly dying in a flaming crash. So I think Hollywood is to the core corrupted.
Yeah.
And it's 100%. Because it's a messaging. So if you look at where messages come through, and Hollywood's a big messenger, and television and news agencies and stuff, country music has a real problem. So Kathy was hitting the Nashville scene a lot. Mm-hmm. She names Loretta Lynn, Totally Compromised, things like that. And so wherever there's messaging that goes out to the public, the rap world, right? That's what Diddy was all about, was the rap world. And so these guys play key roles in making sure the message that goes out to the public is controlled. Then you get some guy like Bieber who starts kind of spilling his guts, little hints at a time. I've spent an enormous amount of time trying to figure out Tom Hanks, who is as wholesome looking as Bill Cosby, who all of a sudden became unwholesome. And then you start replaying the tape and saying, wait a minute, Bill Cosby's son died in the shooting.
Who became a citizen of Greece, right?
Right. And so Hanks gets hammered, and he's everybody's darling. And the trick is that there is no memo that says, here's the data. Mm-hmm. You can piece together. I've gone back and found old tweets that they're supposedly his, and I found them. They were his. The other odd thing about the satanic crowd is there seems to be a rule within that community is you have to show your hand.
You have to show your hand like that?
No, you have to show your hand like in poker.
Okay, got it.
You have to tip your hand. You have you show the world through subtle hints that
that's
you are
the deal.
A member of the club. Yeah, it seems as though it's part of the religion, which is what Satanism is.
So what's a hand? What's a show?
Well,
Is it?
there are some hand signals which I won't do on film because I don't want to. One of the things I will do is covering your eye is a biggie. So if you look at Hollywood, there are so many pictures of Hollywood starlets with their eyes covered, one eye,
Hmm.
and that has supposedly deep meaning in the satanic world. But you also show it. LeBron James has done some stuff that's decidedly overtly looking sketchy,
Yeah.
um, including wearing a dress, but that could be
Yeah.
AI. Um,
I think
and
that's real, but go ahead.
right. And he was audio taped, videotaped saying Diddy after parties are great.
Yep.
And and uh
There's enough there to believe that.
and so the Hollywood crowd, I think they tipped their hand. And then I just yesterday was reminded by a picture posted by Rudy um, of Justin Trudeau, whose father was one of Kathy O'Brien's abusers, um, and appears to be the son of Fidel Castro. Um, is was dating Katy Perry, who appears to be up to her ass in this crap.
Yep.
And so that so you start seeing these connections, and the great risk is that the connections are artificial or they're just coincidences, and that everyone's taking the same coincidence and using that as their source material. So I like it when I get a truly independent read on something.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
get it read, but then it just goes back to like it's just
what do you
so
do with it?
much,
It is so much,
you know.
and
And then you're
I don't.
crazy for believing it, right? That's the gaslighting.
Definitely. Well, they gaslight Candace Owens now. They gaslight Massie. They gaslight Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
His brother Buckley now is in the spotlight, probably. Um, and so if you become a problem, I got attacked last year by the Zionists in a very big way for a totally innocuous thing, and it made me mad. So it made me hate them.
Mhm.
Um, but like Laura Loomer came at me, right? And I referred to as the master of clickbaiting and then shortened it to the master baiter, and finished writing about her. But so she is totally pro-Zionist, right? She's
Right.
totally a Zionist and pro-Israel. And at the same time, there's pictures of her when she's younger with a cross, right? So she's not Jewish. She pretends to be Jewish now, I think,
Hmm.
but she's a Christian Zionist if she is not. I'm still confounded by Christian Zionism, but uh,
I I am not so much that's somewhat I have a lot of experience with them. And when I say that, I was not as a child in that camp, but they were all my friends.
right,
And I literally remembered at 12 years old rolling my eyes at them. I mean, being going from confused to rolling my eyes at them. But then I'll say this, it is confusing, but they have their identity is based on that. Their way to heaven is based on that. So
right, right,
if you attack that, their salvation is in jeopardy.
right.
That's the problem.
And but you saw Tucker interview Huckabee, right? One,
I
one,
Yes.
one, and Cruz.
Yes, both
There,
I highly
there
suggest
should
both.
be a rule that's unbroken, and that is you never debate Tucker,
Yeah, because he
right?
asks the question.
Well,
He asks the
but
question.
he can eviscerate you, and he knows so much about so many things.
Yeah.
And so, if you are like when Anna Kasparian went on her show, which was a brilliant move on Tucker's part and Anna's part, is what they did is they formed an alliance across the aisle,
Mhm.
and they have made it now cool to form such alliances, and so they're basically converting the attempt to make it a left versus right into a plebe versus elite.
Yeah.
And I think that's
which they should do.
They should do. And so Anna Kasparian went from being on my short list of people who I'd never listened to being on a short list of people who I always listen to.
Yeah, exactly.
And Glenn Greenwald. There's a bunch of them who've really tried to help us understand the world.
That's another one, Greenwald. Yep.
And Douglas McGregor seems to be an honest guy.
Yep.
When I wrote about the Ukraine war, I found about 40 guys who are trying to tell the story correctly.
Yep.
And they turn out to have been important. And like John Mearsheimer showed up on stage with Steve Walt again.
Mm-hmm.
Walt, who was once quoted as saying, "I regret writing what I wrote because it caused so much trouble for him." So Walt went quiet where Mearsheimer went balls to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I had noticed that Walt's silence was deafening. And I think he just didn't like the fight. But he did a debate, maybe it was a monk debate. I went down to New York to listen to a monk debate. And Walt and Mearsheimer went against what's Victoria Nuland and someone else. I can't remember the other person, but Victoria Nuland is truly despicable. Yep. And Walt challenges them, said, you are aware, they're talking about Iran. They said, you are aware that we bombed them, right? And I'm going, that's about as succinct as you can put it.
Right.
And I don't see how there's any chance that the United States comes out ahead at the end of this war. But that's where there are people.
Luongo break.
That's for me and Luongo, yeah. And I could be converted because I find myself in a perpetual state of confusion. But right now, I can't see a path that we don't end up worse off than before the war.
So I'll take that. I'll take that aside. And I'm not saying I'm 100% there, but I can see it.
Tell me.
Divorce ethics. We control the oil. We have lower oil prices. The world has lower oil prices. Peace in the Middle East. All the money is going to be pumped into the Middle East from American companies.
I don't think we're heading for peace in the Middle East at all. Looks to me like the focal point of World War III.
So
it seems to me the way you get peace in the Middle East is to extract Israel out and kick their asses to the curb.
But everybody in the Middle East is signed on now for opening up the Straits of Hormuz. I'm going to sound like Luongo. I just talked.
Well, who has control over that decision ultimately?
The U.S.
I think Iran does.
You think Iran?
Mm-hmm. That's where Tom and I really
disagree.
Well,
and I can see that too.
Well, but he thinks that the U.S. military is this awesome force, which it is.
Right.
But I'm not sure. Also, as I've said, we lost a war to guys running around in pajamas and sandals because they have home field advantage.
They have home field advantage, but I'm looking at it. We didn't put, unless I'm wrong, we didn't put a boot on the ground, unless I'm sure there's CIA ops there.
But there's so many military experts who say you can't win a war from the air. You got to get to the ground.
Right. But we didn't yet.
Right. And therefore,
well, we did a regime change. I don't know exactly what that looks like in Iran.
I don't think we did.
Okay. And the Straits of Hormuz is now open.
I don't think it is.
Okay. We'll see.
This is the problem. It's that we can't agree on set facts. I think there are ships going through it.
Right.
But if you're on an interstate highway, there's traffic moving and then there's traffic jams.
Yeah. No, I don't see it being smooth. Don't get me wrong.
Well, what percent? If you had to take a wild guess, closest to the pin takes it all.
Right.
What's the percentage of the flow right now?
Let's say the percentage of and I don't know, but let's say it's
I
60%.
know.
Yeah,
That is the
50%.
problem.
Let's say it's half, right?
That's a problem.
Yeah. That is a problem, but is it a problem for the US?
No, no, but it is a
And
problem for the rest of the world. Again, if I were Iran,
yeah.
first of all, I think there's a lot of source of disagreement amongst those of us who think that Iran can hang tough for a very long time, and those who think that Iran's totally fucked and that they're just going to die if they
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hurry up.
And by the way, I've gone back and forth like daily about that too.
Well, that's where the home field advantage matters. It's amazing what you can put up with when it's
Right.
your own country being bombed.
Yeah. Everything from logistics to just national
Starvation.
pride.
Right. It's a unifying phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Russians, you don't take out, Russia ever. They're just too tough.
Yeah.
They're just too tough.
But then is it our problem?
Well, no, not necessarily our problem, but
It's China's problem, right?
maybe
It's Saudi's problem, right?
maybe. Don't forget, people who sell oil are potentially going to be able to charge a lot more for their oil.
Well,
like look at Ukraine. Putin made all his money back on higher price of oil and higher price of gold.
But what if Iran floods the market with oil?
Well, but the claim is they can't because they can't get it out. So
that's
now
what they claim.
But that's the paradoxical argument.
Right.
So if you want to make
exactly
that,
where we're at.
Yeah. So I think Iran can hang tougher than it's just a belief. It's not based on fact. I just believe home field advantage means you will hang tough for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think they can. I'm guessing that, we're using Western values for hanging tough, where these guys know what hanging tough means.
Yeah, they've been around for what, 5,000 years.
These guys know how to suffer. Yes, they know how to suffer. And I think potentially the game theory model for me is brutally simple. And that is you inflict enough damage on the global economy so that the next time Israel says, let's bomb Iran, the entire world says, shut the fuck up, go back to Tel Aviv, because we don't want anything to do with this shit. The last time you did it, you fucked everything up, go home.
Yeah.
Right? That's Iran's win.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And by the way, if they're charging $2 million for ship going through the Strait of Hormuz, that's not a bad win either.
No, not at all.
I can't see Iran losing. That's the problem. I can't see the path to losing.
Well, I guess you got to. I see Iran winning in this. The people winning in this potentially. And gosh, I sound like a neocon, and I swear to God, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I don't sense you're a neocon.
Yeah, I swear to God, I'm not. I'm not advocating war. This is what I would say. At the beginning of this, I was completely against. Then part of that was Tom, just talking to him. But then I thought, this is so high risk. But if they pull it off, meaning if oil does flow from there and there is US influence and stability, this could be a great thing. And I don't.
Well, I'm having trouble figuring out how we're better off now than before we bombed them. The Strait of Hormuz was wide open.
Yeah.
There was stability.
Right. But was there stability?
It was meta stability, but the Middle East is always meta stability is where it is potentially unstable, but the path to get to unstable has a barrier to it.
Right.
That's meta stability.
I got you.
That's sitting in a little crevice of a rock at the top of Mount Everest. There's a big downhill fall, but you got to get out of the crevice to get to the downhill.
No,
that's meta stable.
I got you 100%. It was meta stable, but I think it was unstable enough, and unstable enough for the powers that be that want to go in there with their oil pipelines, the Halliburtons of the world.
So you and I have very different worldview of U.S. foreign policy. I think U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East can be described in a nutshell. If any country looks like it's getting stable, you fuck it up. That's my view of U.S. foreign policy.
That was my view, and that still might be my view.
Well, so that Lebanon, what's going on in Lebanon that in any way, shape, or form is excusable?
No, completely.
Why do we take out Assad? Yeah. Why did we take out Assad?
It's completely fuck up.
Why do we take out Gaddafi?
Yep. Completely fuck up. Okay,
so your model's getting pummeled here unless you can come back to some of these.
I'm with you. Well, yeah, I'm with you. Well, not really. My model, and I'm not saying it's my model either. I'm just becoming very sympathetic to it. That didn't happen, and I'm not saying this about going to follow Trump off a cliff, right? Mm-hmm. But I could see this being 4-day chess. Gaddafi didn't happen that happened under Obama. Lebanon is happening under Trump. I'll give you that, which is a complete. That is.
Well, if Trump in any way is compromised, then whose president doesn't matter. I mean, previous presidents were able to avoid getting into a fight with Iran to their credit. Yeah. But Obama kept trying to fake shit. Obama, obviously with CIA help, were trying to fake gas attacks in Syria. They were totally fraudulent.
Right.
And they just wouldn't stick. They were failing to stick. And so they couldn't justify going and bombing the fuck out of knocking off Assad. I have not been able to find out what it is about Assad that was so goddamn important that we had to get him out of there.
There's nothing I could think of.
Right. And there could be a reason.
Yeah. I just haven't found it or thought of it. But Syria, for crying out there, there's no oil there, right?
But Syria is part of the greater Israel theory.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Right. There's the famous Wesley Clark. We're going to knock him off in this order video.
Yeah.
And so I
that's the only thing that makes sense.
So it looks to me like, and we knocked off Saddam. Why? Why did we knock off Saddam?
Oh, you didn't want to play ball.
What do you mean? He played ball with us.
He did play ball with us. He was no longer useful for some reason.
I know, but that's a kind of a non-answer, right? That's kind of a non-answer, right? I don't have a good.
Okay.
I can't explain.
Okay, so
here's the thing that mystifies me.
I don't know if I have a good answer either.
Well, it could be just George Jr. wanting to knock him off to show that he's a bigger man than his dad or something like that. But I think you had to trace it to Cheney, although Cheney profoundly, clearly articulated why trying to occupy Iraq would have been a huge mistake after the Gulf War. Right. He laid it out in beautiful language,
right?
Apparently with his big dick in his pants. And then of course as VP, proxy president.
Yep. 1,000%.
They went in there to knock off Iraq.
Right.
And then Gaddafi was stabilizing.
Yep.
So, and then you go back and you start looking at events like the USS Liberty, which is certainly an ugly chapter.
But Dave, that goes back to, we just had an hour conversation where it's eerie how things are orchestrated. And now you're making a point about this is not orchestrated. I mean, they're trying to orchestrate, but this is stupid as opposed to.
No, I don't think it's stupid. Yeah. I think it's our policy. We want an unstable Middle East. A stable Middle East is not in our interest.
Yeah.
The other thing is we never want to create.
Can we have a stable Middle East with Iran?
It didn't look unstable to me.
Yeah.
Here's one. Here's a blasphemous rhetorical question. I think we can agree that there is no example and never will be an example of a sovereign state that doesn't lie to optimize its narrative. No sovereign state tells the truth.
Right.
They all have their narratives.
Yep.
Post-World War I narratives, post-World War II narratives, post-Vietnam narratives. They all have their narratives. So then I like to ask the question, okay, what happened on October 7th? And right away you realize you're going, oh, fuck, I just got suckered. I agreed that every sovereign state lies. So now I'm supposed to answer the question, what happened on October 7th? Here's what I'll tell you.
They were let in.
Yeah, I can make the case that they knew months in advance that was coming using exclusively Israeli sources.
Yeah,
Israeli sources.
They're let in.
The Egyptians told them they're coming, get ready, and they pulled their troops away. And if I'd asked you on October 6th, if Hamas dropped 800 guys into Israel, how long would it take Israel to clean up that mess? What would your closest to the pin guess be? 10 minutes?
Really, yeah, I was going to say a week. Really quick.
No,
really
10
quick.
minutes. 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes, yeah.
There's no way that 800 Hamas could run around Israel for 8 hours, raping, pillaging, and taking captives.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't, for example, know how many captives they got. We don't know how many people they killed. I've seen reports that there was a lot of friendly fire deaths and things like that. And of course, I could believe it. I could even imagine the Israelis killing a bunch of people just to make sure plenty died. Yeah. We don't know about the captives. They got released, right? We don't know if they were really under terrible conditions or if they were in some Motel 8 eating prime rib, waiting to be told to go out and pretend like you were mistreated.
Right.
You don't know anything.
Right.
Because sovereign states lie.
Right. Yep.
And I'm confident Israel is not the exception to that rule.
Yep.
And so then the question is, so that was just a false flag. Okay, they happen all the time. Yeah. All the time. But then they went and beat the living snot out of Gaza, which is why there are tons of people in this country who have turned on them.
Yep.
Then the question I like to ponder is, does Israel care about that?
No.
Or did they just say, fuck it, we're going to look bad, but we'll have the Strip, we'll have big chunks of Lebanon. We've now dealt with part of the Syrian problem. Greater Israel theory is progressing. Fuck it.
Yeah. But is it Greater Israel progressing? And I actually got to write this. I got to hold on a second. I have to wrap this up. I got another client calling me.
Okay.
But is it progressing? I don't think it is.
Well, they're knocking out a lot of Lebanese have been taken out at the kneecaps.
Yeah. No,
Gaza Strip is ready to be bulldozed and turned into a resort.
Yeah, right. But I don't think it's not being progressed with the people like you and me. I don't think it's being mainstream progressed either.
No, they're not. They've given up on the PR is my point. They've given up.
Yeah.
They say, okay, we tried that whole
that's your point. I got it. I'm sorry,
moral capital, but now we're just, fuck it, we're just going to take the Gaza Strip. It really does appear as though the goal is to just squeegee every last Palestinian off the Gaza Strip.
Yeah. Yeah.
At any cost.
Yeah, no, I would agree
10
with
years
you on
from
that.
now, we won't be talking about it. 10 weeks from now, we won't be talking about it.
Well, we already stopped talking about it too.
Right. And so, and we just should not forget. Now, we've killed more people than them by a country mile. Right? Yeah. We've killed like 5 million Middle Easterners since 9/11.
Yeah. Without
ever actually attacking the country from which most of the supposed hijackers came from.
Yeah.
So,
right. That was always confusing to me.
Here's what bothers me. What's different? I can make the case that 9/11, that the guys who made that call, as brutal as it is, I can make the case that I could imagine they believe it was in the U.S. best interest. We had to get to the Middle East. We had to get our troops in. So we needed a big event. 3,000 people. I know it's a high price to pay, but so is Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
If I could believe Cheney and these guys really believe they're doing the right thing for the United States, just like Netanyahu might.
Yeah.
I do not believe that we necessarily can make that same case in our support for slaughtering the Palestinians.
Yeah. Oh, I
don't
don't
think that's
think you
I don't
can.
think that's in our best interest.
No, I don't think it's in our best interest. I mean, you can on any angle, at any
Right.
angle.
Well, this is a problem.
Yeah. No, it's a problem.
And this is not 4D chess anymore.
No. Then you have to, and yeah. But that's the thing is, I know what to do with that. That's a problem.
There's another problem, and then we quit.
Okay.
The Zionists, which again, I'm trying not to be pejorative, but it's getting more pejorative because
I'll be pejorative with Zionists. Go ahead.
well, there are Zionists who are not bad people. They just have this belief in what should be true, and it depends on the definition. But how many of those montages have you watched where someone of power within the Zionist community says, we've got 50,000 lawyers ready to destroy people who go against us?
Mm-hmm.
The anti-Semitism is rising very, very quickly now. There is no doubt about that.
Sure.
The question is why, and I would argue it's those people. You want to make me mad. You put some guy in front of a microphone that says, if you criticize us, we'll destroy you.
Yep.
That guy just went on my shit list.
Yep. 100%. Victor Davis Hanson, right?
I'm pissed at Victor because I thought he was a good guy. And then he went at me repeatedly. And I said, fuck you, Victor. Yeah. And he lied. He lied.
Yeah.
And I'm not using the word douchebag or slime doggy. He lied.
Yeah.
And so Victor is a Zionist. Yeah. He's on someone's payroll.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Well, Dave, let's end it there. It's always extremely enlightening.
And I haven't forgotten what you promised me, and I'm reading, and you said you'd offer me help, or someone would offer me help, and I have not forgotten it all. I'm just waiting.
When you're ready.
When I'm ready.
When you're ready. Dave, let's do it again in every 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
All right.
If the Zionists don't take me out at the kneecaps.
Me too. Thank you, Dave.
Adios. Yep.